And at the time I was an EMT and I was spending all of my shifts talking to the people on the ambulance about politics anyway. So I was like, you know what if I just explain what I'm already explaining on the ambulance, but just in front of a camera? What if I just do that? And especially with everything that I was seeing as an EMT of just the health disparities that are currently here in the United States, not that will happen under whomever, but that are here and have been here for decades. I think that all of that just kind of made me feel like it's either that I get an audience, which is great if I do, and if I don't, I'm screaming into the void, and that's cathartic. So either which way, I'm getting something out of it. And if it helps people understand my point of view and helps hopefully shift the Overton window, then so be it. But really, first and foremost, it was my political art. And then I was like, I can't stay quiet. Like I really struggled to be quiet. And it felt like that was the next inevitable step.
Yeah. This is it's you you're the type of person that's like this if you just are that it's great. Like you're talking to people in the ambulance. You got a captive audience. It's great. Their asses ain't going anywhere.
They can't go anywhere. They literally cannot leave me. So I'm like,
It's great. It's like, oh, this is amazing. It's what I've been waiting for. But there's a lot of people like that. However, like if that happens, to me, and I can tell, all right, the person's actually interested in what I have to say. And if I did it all the time and no one gave a fuck and they're like, there's annoyed by it, I would have never done this. But the fact that whenever I do this, people tend to listen, even people who disagree, that's when I think that's when it's like, okay, this could actually do something. That's probably how you felt too.
Yeah, no, it was definitely that. I would talk to people where I would leave the ambulance after our 12-hour shifts and I would leave like, oh my God, if I ever see their name on the schedule ever again, I am dodging them like the plague. I cannot sit through another 12 hours with this person. They were saying just flat out racist things. They were talking crap about their patients. And like, of course, I would report them when there was something official to report. But unfortunately in Georgia, like I can't report everyone who is racist because otherwise like I can and I would.
Yeah.
But like they're not going to get kicked out, especially from the company that I was working at. It's just, you could really do a lot and get away with a lot, which I did not enjoy. And so I would leave those conversations like, oh my God. And I would run into them and they're like, hey, like, when are you working again? Like, I would love to continue those conversations. I started looking up into like what you were telling me and I'm like, wow, I'm blown away. And I was like, I really thought that we were not on the same page. But you left and did some research into what I was saying. Like, I must have hit a nerve.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it was just that's exactly how I felt of like, if I can talk to, for example, my dad, who it has taken me years to get him to the perspective that he is now at of, I may agree with everything that you say, but why do you have to call it communism? He's that type of person. And I love him to death. He has, again, so many great qualities, but politics, we just disagree. And if I can get someone who was born and raised in 46, was an adult during the 60s and 70s Cold War, experienced McCarthyism firsthand, and is a Vietnam vet, where not that he had to buy hook, line, and sinker why they were invading Vietnam, but he still mentally, to survive that experience, I think felt some sort of way towards the Vietnam War that other people who are not connected to it and who didn't have to experience it at all don't. And so I think about him and I'm like, you literally were fed every single reason to hate my ideology. You just were. And if I can get him to listen, not all the time, and I will say I mess up sometimes where I lose my calm and that does not help my argument sometimes. But like, I was like, if I can get him to understand, then I should be using this to at least, and that's what my first videos were, was let me tell you how I deal with talking to a far right person, how I deal with getting them to see my side as a communist without saying the word communism. And I realized that if I could get more people to do that, then hopefully we could shift these conversations in a direction that I wanted. And I knew that as a TA, I had gotten so many good reviews of like, you can explain concepts so well, which it was biology. And I think that that's one of my strengths. But like, if I can do that in front of a class of 15, I think I can record a silly little video on my phone.
Yeah. The bar's a lot lower. And it's so true. It's so weird how similar our experiences are with this. Actually, it's not that weird at all, and I think about it. But in the military, I found this happening all the time. Now, the military, there's a lot of hardcore conservatives in there, but it's not as conservative as people would guess. It really isn't.
It's not, because they prey on, who are they preying on? The people
Yeah.
who feel the most discrimination of our current systems, which is
Yeah.
so they're gonna understand. Yeah, no, I definitely
Yeah. It's like, I'd say the military is about 60-40 Republican. It's not nearly as bad as people would guess, but there are some now. The Republicans, though, are the worst type of Republicans. Like the ones that trust me, there are some like straight up like open fascists, like all the time in the military. Especially you talk to special forces guys. My God. But anyway, not gonna get that later. But I would have conversations with people and just like toward the end of my career, and this is what, once again, I have a lot of people who are in the military who will talk to me about this. Like, how do I get in? The advice I give them with a grain of salt, because what worked for me won't work for everyone. Like, it just won't. It's just like, I can't tell you, but I would talk to like entire platoons and just give like lessons on Marxism and dialectical materialism and shit. And they would just be like edge of their seat, and they're just waiting to hear more and everything. Like the most right-wing guy like in the entire battalion, he'd be like, yeah, Whitehead, I can't say I disagree. I can't say I agree with what you're saying, but I like how you think and how you're explaining it. And I was like, God damn, really? It's like it worked. It never didn't work. It's not that I won them all over, but they all listened. And I was like, okay, well, God, why don't I just do this all the time? And I wanted to talk about, you mentioned your dad. And like your dad, he was born at 46, you said, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's actually incredible whenever someone who was, because like we were raised with propaganda and they were raised with decades more. And like if I was born back then, I would still be rather conservative too, And it's funny you talk about your dad and trying to slowly shift him over, because my dad is very similar. Now, my dad is not a conservative by any means, but he is a capitalist to the core. Like my dad is, and I don't really blame him. I mean, that's how he knew that's what you needed to do to succeed, being born into literal Jim Crow and everything like he was. And so when my dad got in the military, he started a small business, and like he scraped together some money. And I remember he rented like the shittiest building in the city. Like it was horrible. It was flooded. There was like 2 inches of water over it, and we had to like one of the pipes had busted, and we had to plug it. We had to drain the water. Of course, the carpet was garbage now, so we had to rip up the carpet and lay down new carpet, whitewash the walls and everything. By the way, I'm like 13 at the time. My brother and sister were even younger. So all the stories you hear with small business owners talk, we did it. Like, it's true. We did all that. But being raised by a small business owner, and I got to see firsthand the power that small business owners have over people. And it's like, oh, okay, I see it now. And it took years to kind of get around that. And so my dad and my mom now, they live in San Diego. So is my sister. And they've retired now and everything. And so slowly he's moving more to the left. I mean, there's only so far you can expect him to go. And my dad is a great man. I have a great relationship with him, like one of the kindest people that you'll ever meet. But every now and then something will come up, because I remember visiting him for Thanksgiving, and they moved into this new complex. San Diego is insanely expensive place to live, like insanely. And so, and I was at my parents' house too, and my God, like this, I felt like I was in Iron Man's house going to my parents' house. Like everything was a machine. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But it's a really, really nice neighborhood. And he's driving me around, showing me the houses and everything. And he says, yeah, so this area over here, they weren't single family homes. They were like they were apartments and everything. Yeah. And he says, so tell me if I should feel bad about this. And he says, so, these houses or these apartments are for low income families and people that want to come in. And so like they're partly subsidized and they can live in here and everything. But, I don't know if it's fair that, they can move into this really nice neighborhood and everything. And, and because it brings down the property value of the houses that he just bought.
I was waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yes, exactly. And so then I was like, well, listen, Dad, I do get it that let's just be real. It does suck that you put all this money in the house and then you expect the value to go up and then it takes an immediate hit. And so it's not weird that you feel some resentment toward this. But I said, you got to look at the bigger picture here. Do you think poverty is a problem? He's like, oh yeah, of course. I was like, so do you think the answer to it is to keep people economically segregated in perpetuity? Do you think that's going to solve it, or will it make it worse? He goes, yeah, I guess you put it that way. It does make a lot of sense. But once again, you're not trained to think like that. Like you were not trained to think like that at all.
I was honestly shocked by the beginning part of where he even had the self-awareness, just because no one, especially from older generations, were taught as much about self-awareness or reflection compared to us. And even more for, I think, me, just given how young I am. And I think that that's for him to start it out of like, tell me if I should feel bad about this.
Yeah.
It's such I love it when older people who I'm talking to start with that, or like, I know that this may sound bad. And I'm like, you're almost there. Your gut instinct is finally calibrated. But
it's great. Which is why that's why it's so important to have people that do this type of thing, who can, I don't want to say eloquently, I don't want to say it that way, but properly, lay out the reason. Effectively. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Lay out.
It's not always eloquent. Sometimes it's a matter of like the biggest hit that I found in terms of my content, in terms of what I do, which it's not really something I do on purpose. It's just who I am. I am terrible. And I do think that it comes from a place where I haven't ever been put in a position, especially as a child, to learn this skill, because I was always just in the same tiny little school. I only had 70 people in my grade. It was comfortable enough to where I could just be myself-ish. But when I started growing up, I realized that I am someone who, when I speak up, I don't code switch. I cannot. I'm not capable of switching to professional talk. Just because I'm someone who curses a lot. I curse as a sailor. Like I like, and it worked really, really well when I was in EMT, because that's a situation where they kind of are a little more lenient about those things. Because if blood is hitting the wall, like your professionalism is out.
Yeah.
Like we're just dealing with what's here, and we're just going to talk to each other like we're just regular people. And I think that that's why, like, it's not always, sometimes it is eloquent, like, especially if you're talking to the elitists. And I do think that I'm able to somewhat switch of like, I can use more vocabulary that I learned in my classes, but the majority of the time that I structure my sentences, I've noticed, and I don't know if it's also if I'm bilingual, so I'm already dealing with the French in my head. So I don't know. I'm also just really bad at languages, but like I struggle so much to switch into that more formal speak. And I think that that does really good for the type of content that we make, because I think that we meet people where they're at rather than expecting them to listen to something that's half vocab words that they don't know. And not for any reason other than we don't get taught them. Like, it's not like I'm some sort of genius over here. It's just like, I just did the reading for this, so now I know about it. Like, that's it.
Yeah, I have a lot that actually goes into a question that I was going to ask about this, about leftist messaging and everything, how it works. But I want to stick on this for a little while, because I can't code switch either. Like, the way I talk now is how I talk all the time, but it seems to work. Like, it seems to work no matter where I am. Like, professionally, I speak this way. And I think it's because I use a lot of humor, which is kind of universal. Like, no matter.
I think that's,
Yeah, it works no matter what.